Chapter 16. The Cryptidate. I ask with a shy smile. You asking me out, Alpha? A blush started to form on his cheeks and I could tell he was accustomed to this sort of thing. A wwwh he is blushing. I commented to add to his embarrassment. Clearing his throat he went on. Is that a yes or a no? He asked sternly. Well, you see, the thing is I don't really go out with strangers. I smirked as I saw his disbelieving expression. Stranger? I couldn't call someone you've been sleeping with a stranger. Thane smirked as he walked towards me and I backed up all the way into the wall of the hallway. Sleeping? I snorted. I would hardly call it sleeping seeing that you snore louder than someone sawing wood. I retorted. He trapped me like he always did and moved in closer towards me until I could feel his cool breath fanning my neck. Say yes, he commanded. No, I stammered as his lips touched my right earlobe. I struggled to move, but if I was being honest with myself I didn't want to and I wasn't sure how to respond either as this was uncharted territory between us. So all I did was place my hands on his shoulders. He moved his lips down my neck as he trailed kisses. I stopped struggling and I could feel his smile against my tender skin. Should I stop? He asked, but I barely paid any attention to what he was saying. I bit my lip to hold in an unwarranted moan that wanted to escape as he bit down on a soft spot on my neck. A wave of pleasure and emotions came rushing into my system when he did that and I couldn't answer him without embarrassing myself. My hands clenched on his biceps as this uncontrollable feeling rushed through me. Do you want me to stop? He asked again when he didn't hear a reply. Knowing that I may or may not regret this later on, I gave in and moved my neck further to give him more access. With a soft chuckle he continued his passionate attack and I was weak in the knee, shivering with pleasure. No date. I suddenly let out unintelligibly as I remembered what we were discussing. Are you sure? He asked before biting the same spot on my neck a little harder. Yes. I let out as my answer in a moan. Yes, we're going on a date. He asked as he kissed me where he just bit, which sent a shiver down my spine. We're not going a date. I meant yes as in yes, and sure we are not going on a date. I cleared my voice and clarified as he finished his torture and looked down at me. I could see desire and longing in his eyes, but this wasn't going any further for tonight. There was lust at first, but never love. I wanted to go on this date with him, but I was going to let him seduce me into it. Please, Emery, go on a date with me, he said again as he removed my hand from his arms and clasped them between his. Maybe if you asked instead of demanded. I trailed off. I never meant for it to come off that way, he suddenly said. I've never actually asked a girl out before, so don't blame me on my first attempt. He laughed it off, a bit embarrassed. Let me do this right. Suddenly he was shooting towards the staircase as he bolted all the way down into God knows where. I was left confused and surprised. This guy never seems to amaze me, especially with his superhuman abilities. But within a few minutes and before I could decipher where he was off to, he was suddenly jogging his way up the stairs with a bouquet of freshly picked flowers. He stopped in front of me, at a gentleman's distance away. Now let me do this the right way. He held the flowers out to me as he asked, Emery, would you do me the greatest honor of going out with an untrained beast like myself? He shot me a dazzling yet wary smile as he waited for my answer. I smiled at him as I dragged on his agony. So that's a yes? He asked as his smile started to fade. No, that's more of an ill think about it. I smirked as I reached over for the flowers, but before I could take them out of his hands he pulled them back towards him. Oh no, these are for my date, and since you just turned me down, I guess I will have to find someone else to go out with me, he replied as he held the flowers away from me, and a pang of jealousy erupted inside of me. Go find your date somewhere else. I turned around and as I was about to stalk off towards the bedroom I felt his hand at my elbow stopping me. These flowers weren't meant for anyone else. Only you. Say yes and in. It's yours. He whispered in my ear and I couldn't help but smile when he accidentally slipped up. I'll think about it, I replied as a smile grew on my face and I walked towards the bedroom as tiredness took over my system. With a quick bath and clothed in my pajamas I went to brush my teeth. However, when I looked into the mirror, I noticed a deep red mark on my neck. It was a hickey. I couldn't believe Thane left a hickey on neck. I would have been angry, but I didn't exactly protest his actions either. After I was finished in the bathroom, I went straight to bed. Thane never falls asleep before me because he never goes to bed before me. I think it's because he believes that I would kick him out of the room if I was waking when he came to bed. Honestly, I might be before. But now Thane just wedged his way into my life. He always sleeps next to me no matter what. At first it was the floor, but then the morning after he told me he was the beast, I woke up curled in his arms, and since then he just naturally slept next to me. Of course I could try moving to the guest room because of pride, but morals be damned because I wanted him near me. I felt safe and comfortable, and slowly Day becomes less of a stranger to me. So when I fall asleep and Thane has finished his alpha duties for the night, he decides to sleep. But he also never remains sleeping when I wake in the morning. Within seconds of me leaving the bed, he is suddenly wide awake and alert as he searches for me, and once our eyes meet, the strange sense of contentment washes over me and I can't but smile at the thought. I could tell he is exhausted every day because he goes to bed way past midnight, and on most days when he wakes up before I do, it's always at 5 or 6 in the morning. I didn't know if it was my place to tell him to get more rest, because in all honesty I still didn't know what we were besides being classified as mates. I do however try to sleep in on days that he decides to wake up after me. Naturally I fell asleep with ease, but tonight was different as my mind stayed awake until it was midnight and Thane and just taken a shower and was now crawling into bed. He moved stealthily as he probably assumed I was asleep. As he settled next to me, he instantly wrapped one of his arms around my waist and pulled my body into his so that my head was laying on his chest. After a few minutes of silence I could tell he was still awake and decided to give him an answer. "Thane," I called out. "Sweetheart, I thought you were asleep. Are you all right?" he asked with worry laced in his tone. "I'm fine," I mumbled. He lifted my chin so that he was looking at me in the darkness of the room. "Then what's wrong?" "I want to go on a date with you," I whispered. With my answer he chuckled and we fell asleep in each other's arms. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I awoke to a beautiful sight before me. The flowers that Thane had picked last night were now sitting in a vase of water on the nightstand. There was a card attached to it that read for my date. I couldn't help but smile at his gesture. I was finally ready to kickstart this relationship into full gear, even though it was quite a peculiar situation. Without wasting another sec, I ran to the kitchen to look for him, but I came face to face with a buffet of food instead, and as a note. "Date. P. So pick you up at 1. T." I was annoyed at him for not being here when I woke up and only leaving instructions, but I was also excited because HES taking control and planning this romantic gesture his way. He was an alpha after all, so I guess controlling was in his blood. I shrugged the thoughts away as I looked at the clock on the wall to see that it was 9, meaning that I had a lot of time to kill before Thane comes back. I killed time, do you know how to? I ate and watched television. Thane was the best cook and I appreciated the moon goddess for pairing me with him because I didn't want to see another day without food cooked by him. When the clock struck 11 I decided it was time to wash my hair and then get dressed, using almost an entire hour in the bathroom. I washed every inch of grime off my body before I towel dried my hair and wrapped myself in a bathrobe as I walked towards the closet. On the door of the closet I found yet another note from Thane. "I suggest comfortable clothing." I placed the third note with the others safely in the bedside table as I wanted to keep it as a memorabilia of our first date. Deciding a cute yet comfortable dress was probably a good option, I went with a navy blue summer dress with a floral print which I accented with a brown belt. I walked further into the closet, finding a pair of flats to match my ensemble. Grabbing my watch and a simple pair of earrings, I quickly accessorized before swiping some lipstick and mascara on. As I looked in the mirror, the hickey that Thane gave me last night was completely gone. I was surprised because that bruising usually took a few days to faint, but my neck showed no signs of an S presence. That was peculiar, but maybe it had to do with a wolf thing. By the time I was finished it was already 5 minutes to 1. Strolling to the living room I took a seat and began my wait for the arrival of my mate. Seconds turned to minutes. Minutes turned to hours, and suddenly I was sitting in that spot for 3 hours. It was 4 in the evening and Thane never showed up. Maybe he was playing me. Maybe I didn't mean as much to him as he initially led me to believe. Maybe this was all just a sick joke he was playing from the start. I chased the alpha, and I guess he could do as he wished when he was ready. I still didn't give up hope as I decided to check the main floor in case he might be forgotten. "Hey Bailey," I called as I saw her in the living room. She turned and looked at me with a huge grin. "Hey cutie, going out?" she asked suspiciously. I smiled at her compliment. "Yeah, actually Thane was supposed to be here 3 hours ago, but I don't know where he is," I told her. "And it seems unlike him to bail on his mate," she confessed, confused. "Does he have alpha duties right now?" I asked, hoping she could clear my confusion as well. She shook her head, no. Thane instructed Lucas to take charge today because he had something else to do. Maybe his plans for the date are taking him longer than expected to put together. She assured me. "It's been 3 hours. I think he would have at least gotten sorted out by now, or may have shown up and at least said something." I countered as sadness struck me, because he might have stood me up. "I'll contact Lucas or the alpha himself and find out," she said, pointing to her head, meaning that she planned on mine, linking them. "No, it's okay. If he shows up, he shows up, and if he doesn't, well, I guess it's his loss." I shrugged it off. "I'll ask Lucas. Don't worry." And with that she closed her eyes, and I could tell she was trying to link with her mate. Within seconds her eyes opened with confusion. "What's wrong?" I asked, concerned. She held her head as she looked at me, confused. "Our link is blocked. Lucas is blocking me out of his thoughts and from contacting him. He never does that." She looked concerned, and I was starting to get anxious as well. "What about Thane?" I asked with a little panic. She closed her eyes one more time, but as soon as she opened it with a sullen look, I knew he was blocking her as well. "Bailey, is everything okay?" I asked as my concern grew. I could tell that something was off, but she just offered me a little smile like her usual happy ones. "Don't worry, I'm sure they're just dealing with pack stuff and doesn't want us to know." She sounded like she was assuring herself more than me. I couldn't help but feel a little for bringing my situation to her. "Why don't you go upstairs and change while I go find out what's going on with our boys?" she suggested as she pushed me towards the steps. "What? No way. I want to help." I stopped in my tracks. "Emery, whatever Thane and Lucas are blocking me from is so that I wouldn't tell you what's going on," she explained. "Why would they not want me to know? I am the Luna, aren't I?" I asked, confused. "There are dangerous things out there, Emery, and while this pack is one of the strongest and most secure, we do have gaps, and those dangers can slip into our land at any time, and you must be protected at all times." She tried convincing me. What kind of a Luna would I be if I expect everyone to protect me and I don't offer that same protection to everyone else? I fought my case. I could tell I was building a strong case for myself, but Bailey still needed convincing. "Emery, if I allow you to go out of this house with me, the alpha would have my head." I grabbed her hand and promised her, "Whatever you do for me, Bailey, is what I request of you. I wouldn't let Thane blame you because this is my choice. As the Luna, let me do this. If not for myself, but for my pack. Let me learn how to become a Luna. Please," I begged. She debated for a while until she reluctantly agreed. "Ugh, fine. But you better keep the alpha on a leash before he lashes out at me for bringing you along." I smiled in triumph. "I promise he wouldn't." "Great. Let's go then," Bailey said, leading me out the door. "Where exactly are we headed to?" I asked curiously as I followed her out the front door. She turned to me and gave me a nervous smile before replying. The tone of her voice sent a chill down my spine, but I pushed the nerves away as I was more anxious to see if Thane was all right and find out what kept him. "What's the crypt?" I quietly asked as I kept close to her side. "You just have to wait and see," was all Bailey said as we entered the forest across from the pack house. I guess Bailey and I were both uneasy as we walked deeper and deeper into the forest towards the mysterious crypt because it was a silent walk. We both didn't know what was going on with either Thane or Lucas, so we were in for some details. Be it good or bad, I had no idea. We walked for a good 20 minutes or so, and I could tell Bailey was on edge because she had to slow down so I could keep up, but we were fine here. There was a rectangular, one-story solid grey brick building which was that big, but there were no windows and the door was pure metal that looked as thick as the brick walls. The whole enclosure screamed eerie, but the surrounding was dead silent beside it, the chirp of the birds and the ruffling of the leaves. As we approached the building, I could make out 5 bulky figures that were all looking directly at both of us. They all had a formidable aura to them, and there wasn't anything I wanted to do more than to run the opposite direction, but I knew that a Luna would never consider such a thing. These men were all werewolves, and they were guarding the crypt from who knows what. They were also unfamiliar to me, as I hadn't met them the day I met most of the pack. They must have been here guarding this daunting building that day. Bailey, what are you doing here? To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Tall, muscular guy with electric blue eyes asked her as we were right outside the crypt. Is Lucas or the Alpha here? Bailey asked without answering the guy. They are. But you know the rules. No is allowed down in the crypt unless direct orders from the Alpha is sent. His tone was final, and I could tell no matter what Bailey was going to say, he wasn't letting us past. Before she could say anything else, I held her back and spoke up, as the man seemed to only then notice that I was standing right there. I am your Luna, and you may speak with the Alpha if you must, but it's my right to go down there. I held my head high and stood my ground as the fearless female I most definitely was. Luna? The man asked, stupefied. Yes, Luna. Bailey answered for me. The man's face contorted into realization, and he suddenly bowed his head to me in a sign of respect. Forgive me, Luna, I have not gotten the chance to meet you as of before this moment. It's all right. I trailed off as I tried to catch his name. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. He replied. Atticus, if you could open the doors for us and lead us to the Alpha, that would be great help. I asserted as I got to the point. Luna, Emery. I corrected him. Emery. I would be happy to oblige, but I'm afraid we can't defy the Alpha in his orders. He explained. Would you defy the Luna? He looked at the other 4 guys, and I could see the hesitation in their eyes from the dilemma that I placed them in. I guess we cannot. Then I want the doors open now. I directed. With great trepidation he warned. I must follow your orders, Luna. But the Alpha has ordered that you are to never enter the crypt. I will get someone else to open the doors for me if you don't. I won't. He cut me off before I could go any further. I haven't finished, Luna. You are the mother of our pack, and I must do as you command, even if that means to defy the Alpha's word. With that I was pleased to have suddenly earned Atticus' trust. But I must warn you, my Luna. Down there lies great danger and threats to your life. You may see things that are unforgettable and hear things that are so vile it will make you sick. So now that you know what you're getting yourself into, do you want to enter the crypt? He solemnly asked. I was sure if Atticus was telling me this to scare me out of going or truly warn me that there was no going back. If I showed my weakness, I would never gain the trust of this pack to be Luna. Yes, open the doors. I surprised myself by sounding more confident than I felt. I saw admiration but wariness in every owner's eyes as I answered. I hope you're ready for what's awaiting you, Emery. Atticus said as he led us to the door and unlocked it. Bailey gently squeezed my hand in assurance, and we walked behind Atticus. As soon as the doors were unlocked and it swung open, I was suddenly hit with a pungent odor that made me queasy. My insides turned as I smelt the familiar rusty scent of blood and the revolting scent of wet dog. That and a few other unid unfightable scents all swirled together made me feel nauseous. Walk straight ahead in the corridor, and when see the giant steel doors at the end, turn left into the room. The Alpha will be there. Atticus gave us directions as Bailey and I entered. It'll be all right, Em. Bailey said as we took a step inside the building. There was only one dimly lit fluorescent light above a steep set of stairs leading underground. Now or never, right? I said, determined, as I approached the steps. As we descended the staircase, there were only a few lights on the way down, making it hard to see, but Bailey's wolf vision made it easier to see in the darkly lit area, so she carefully maneuvered both of us down until we were at the bottom of the staircase, which unfolded into a long hallway with a few light bulbs on the ceiling, but appeared ever so often through the winding path. We followed down the corridor. There were a few other paths going left and right, but we kept straight ahead in the tunnel of mazes until we finally approached a dead end. Directly in front of us was the giant silver door that as mentioned, which a Moor guard stood and eyed us suspiciously but said nothing, while on the right was another silver door but not as thick or big, and I could hear the faint sounds of screams leaking through as it sounded as if people were being tortured. Why was there screaming? Why would people be tortured? My heart yearned to go towards them and stop whatever madness was happening down here in the crypt, but before I could make another move, Bailey was pulling me to the left where wooden doors stood and Atticus told us to go. When Bailey opened the doors and we entered, my eyes instantly fell on him covered in blood and standing in front of a table where a map was laid out. Thane looked at me unsurprisingly with anger and relief in his eyes. I didn't know what else to do but run to him. After he missed our date, and then being led to this ominous and mysterious crypt, I cowed and held, but feel a sense of relief when I saw him. He opened his arms welcomingly as I approached him, and I buried my face in his neck as it didn't bother me that his clothes were covered in blood which I hoped was his own. "Thane, are you okay? Are you all right? Are you hurt?" I frantically asked as my eyes searched every visible part of his body. He pulled away and looked at me curiously, but anger boiling in his eyes. "I'm fine. It's not my blood," he said, looking down at his shirt and my now ruined dress. "The date," he suddenly exclaimed. "I'm sorry, Emery. I'm so sorry I lost track of time with what's been going on and forgot to inform you that we need to rain check." "No, it's okay. When you didn't show up I was worried that something may have happened. Are you sure you're fine?" I asked as I held his face in my palms to inspect for any bruises which there were. "Thane, you're hurt." I gently brushed the cuts and bruises near his lips, cheeks and eyebrows. "They're just scratches, and fine." He kissed the inside of my wrists as he held them in his hands and lowered them away from his face. "Now tell me, why are you here?" I was worried. I didn't know what else to do. "Who let you down here?" he asked as his anger now seeped into his voice and expression as he looked behind me at Bailey, who was now with Lucas. "Don't," I chastised. "It's not her fault. I asked her to bring me to you." "And who opened the door down here?" "To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." I whispered. He blew up. "I strictly prohibited him and the rest of the guards from allowing you down here, and he defied me." "Thane, stop it," I said, placing my hands on his shoulders. "I commanded him to let me down here. You said yourself that I was now the Luna of the pack. How am I supposed to protect your people if I don't even know what I'm protecting them from? You can help protect our people without putting yourself at danger and coming in here. In your equal Thane. You said so yourself, and I want to protect our people as much as they protect us. Don't blame Atticus or Bailey. They were only doing what their Luna requested of them. I explained so both the guard and my friend wouldn't get their ears blown off from the Alpha because of me. You are my equal," he said apologetically. "And you have no idea how proud I am right now for what you have done. Defying me in the process or not. I'm happy to see you taking on your lunar responsibilities without being asked to." I could tell Thane was still a bit pissed, but most of his anger subsided as he finally understood the meaning behind my actions. "Answer me honestly, Thane." I started my inquisition. "What's going on down here? What is this place?" I could see the same fright as the one he held when he told me he was a werewolf in his eyes. "This is where we keep the rogues. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeline Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." "Why are you keeping them down here?" I asked inquisitively. "Because they are vile, dangerous creatures. They do not know how to live as civilians. They are wild, untrained wolves who have no pack training and cannot be trusted because they don't know loyalty to their pack or Alpha, which is probably the reason why they got kicked out in the first place." He explained rather angrily. "What makes them dangerous?" I hesitated to ask. Thane looked at me with viciousness. "They enter our territory and kill our pack members. Worst of all, they try to kidnap the Alpha's mate and do unmentionable things just to weaken the pack and take it over." With that, Thane pulled me closer to him in another hug, and I now understood his fear, but I cowed and helped but think why he had blood on his clothes if he only held rogues captive down here. "Thane," I asked as he looked at me, "why are your clothes stained with blood?" "There's been an increase in the number of rogues around our territory, and today they decided to attack. He hesitated before he went on. We also tortured the ones who enter our territory to kill. You hurt them. My eyes literally bulged out of its sockets. We don't have much of a choice, Emery. They may be withholding information from us about other rogues or packs that could attack at any time. And you think it's fine to torture them so much that your clothes are covered in their blood? I asked, repulsed as I stepped away from him. It's the method our pack has used for centuries. This is what keeps us alive, and this is exactly why I didn't want you down here. He continuously ran his fingers through his hair in frustration. Your method may be helpful, but that doesn't mean it's right, I said, disgusted by his actions. He walked toward me, but I took a step back and realized that we were the only ones in the room. Bailey and Lucas must have stepped out to give us space. Emery, I can't change what's been done for centuries. It's what I was taught to do. When I do this, the only thought that runs through my mind is protecting this pack. Protecting you, he said helplessly. It's an archaic method, Thane. I yelled at him. Would you ever consider finding another method? Would that make you feel better? He asked carefully. Yes, torture them in a way that wouldn't physically hurt them. No more blood, please. I begged him. I promise I would stop hurting them if that makes you forgive me, he pleaded. Yes, just don't put our hands in any more blood. I sighed in relief by his revelation. I always wanted to be a doctor to help others, so I can't bear to stand here and allow others to get tortured for something they may not know. No more bloodshed, he promised as he pulled off his shirt and discarded it across the room so I wouldn't have to witness the revolting blood he was covered in, even if some of it stained my dress. What happened today? I asked to distract myself from the now shirtless and exposed Thane. What a sight. About 20 rogues entered the east of our borders this morning and were headed to the pack house. 2 of our border patrol died in the process of fighting them off. We kept a few rogues alive for questioning. He revealed the gory details. Why were they going towards the pack house? I asked with fright. They said they wanted to officially be acquainted with our new Luna, Thane said, and his eyes suddenly turned blood, but I could tell his wolf was surfacing as his anger took over. Hey, it's okay. I'm here and alive. I have you and this entire pack to protect me, I said, walking back to him. He placed his arms on my shoulders, of ensuring that I was real. I can't imagine what I would do to myself if something ever happened to you. I was so far when they entered that I was certain I was going to make it on time, he said, placing a gentle kiss on my forehead. At that moment I needed him to know that I was here and nothing was going to happen, and I badly wanted to show him that with a kiss, but the crypt was hardly the place to have our very first kiss. The thought both frightened and excited me by how close we've grown over the past few weeks that I've been here. But you did end him here, safe and in your arms, I assured him. We should get back home. Aren't you going to show me the rogues? I wondered curiously. Definitely not, he answered seriously. Why not? Please just listen to me this once. I don't want you beyond that door for a reason. I knew he wouldn't budge on the subject, so I began formulating a strategy of my own. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nilbe, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, I said, deciding not to fight him on this yet. You look exhausted. Fighting off wolves isn't an easy task, especially in the morning. He winked as if to impress me as we exited the room with his hand wrapped around my shoulder. The room across from us where the screams were coming from was still being heard, and I nudged Thane to get him to make it stop by fulfilling his promise. He released me as he nodded to one of the 2 guards to open the silver door. The guard used a special glove to push open the door as he unlocked it, and it then occurred to me that the stories were true. Silver was poisonous to a wolf, that was why the doors were made of silver, so the rogues couldn't escape without burning themselves. As soon as the doors opened, I was suddenly overwhelmed by all the screaming. I couldn't bear to picture what those wolves must be going through. They eyed me cautiously to ensure I stayed in place as he entered the room. I couldn't muster the courage even if I wanted to enter that torture chamber. Within seconds of Thane entering, the room went silent except for a few muffled whimpering of persons still reeling from pain. But it was over. Thane stopped the torturing because I asked him to. Thank you, I said to him when he exited the room. No, thank you for finally making me realize what I was doing, he said instead. You were right. That method of getting information was outdated and we should have stopped it sooner. I nodded in agreement. Can we go meet the families of the 2 wolves who died before we go back home? I asked when Thane led us up the steps of the crypt. You read my mind, Luna. Thane grinned at me proudly. It was hard meeting the families of the 2 wolves from our pack who passed. One of them was an older male wolf with a mate, while the other was a young female wolf who just turned 17. Thane told me he didn't allow wolves to fight in battle with rogues until they were 18 or 19, but the girl's family said she admired me and was around the area where the rogues came into our territory and made it her mission to protect me. The other wolf's mate said that he was on board a patrol, and while she told me the story of how they met, I knew that she didn't want to be here without her mate. Thane once told me that some wolves choose to follow their mates to death because they wouldn't know how to live without their other half. Luckily, they didn't have any children, so a child would be left orphaned because of reckless rogues. I kept my composure while listening to both family stories and sharing my condolences with them, and giving them words of wisdom and encouragement, while Thane discussed the cremation details, which happened to be another ritual. With the families, I stood outside their homes looking up to the sky and couldn't help but blame myself. These wolves, these people died because of me. They died protecting me. A lousy human who didn't even want to help led that pack with their alpha a few weeks ago. A weak, useless human who couldn't help protect them in time of need, who once almost ran away because I was too weak to face the truth of who they are. But I came to respect them and truly understand who they are, and they are now my people. It was my responsibility to protect them, and instead they died protecting a nobody like me. They died for nothing. As we left the families in mourning, Thane and I headed back to the pack house as the sun was setting. We were both lost in our thoughts as we silently acknowledged the pack members in the house. Thane wanted us to stay downstairs and have dinner with the pack, but after everything that I learnt today from the torturing and the deaths, I couldn't even think about stomaching my food, so I left Thane to his meal and worried expression. I went straight to the balcony outside the nest room and just sat there as I stared idly, watching the sun disappear over the horizon. I felt numb. Was this what being a Luna entailed? Did I have to stand witnessing the deaths of my pack and the unsuspected rogue attacks? Sweetheart, are you okay? I was frightened by the sudden voice of Thane as his hand rested on my shoulders. Hey, why are you crying? His question had me bewildered until I touched my cheek, and indeed there were tears. Thane knelt beside me and gently brushed them away with his thumbs. I didn't realize I was. My voice came out croak. Why? Is it the crypt? Is it the torturing that have you worried? Because I assure you today was the last. He guaranteed. Partially, yes. But it's the wolves that died today. Sweetheart, their deaths aren't your fault. He assured. Yes. If they weren't trying to protect me, they would still be alive. That young girl died because she wanted to save me. You can't blame yourself. Any of the pack members would give up their lives for you. It's who we are. It's what my grandfather, my father, myself and every alpha before us trained our pack to do. You're either Luna. You have to forgive yourself and focus on the rest of the pack. Thane talked some sense into me. How do you do it? Years of practice and training. When I was younger and learned about wolves dying to save me, I was grief-stricken, but my father taught me to harness that guilt and turn it into my strength by helping the pack to become stronger and more fearless. I don't think I could do that, I said honestly. Thane gathered my hands in his. You can. You're either Luna of the pack. You're my mate. You're stronger than you think you are, and the moon goddess chose you for a reason. But I can't protect them. I objected. Yes, you can. You may not be able to help them physically, but by just showing up to pack meetings or helping the wounded, you make them feel safe. You give them the assurance they need. He pulled me up so I was standing as he did the same and gestured with his finger. The garden down below. You see all those roses? Yes, pointing to the extreme left of the garden where the roses were secluded from the rest and marble benches littered the area. What about them? I asked curiously. Every time a pack member died, my mother planted a rose. Be it old age or death in combat. She planted a rose for them. He revealed. Where does your mom keep her gardening tools? Tomorrow I'll show you. He promised as he planted a kiss on head. Now let's get some sleep. I'm exhausted. We walked back inside and I was feeling a little better, but I had to remind myself about the wolves that died. Not about me. They were the heroes and I was going to make the situation about me feeling responsible. Tomorrow I would plant the flowers in commemoration of our great warriors. Thanks for the flowers. I smiled at Thane as I spotted the flowers Thane left for me this morning. There's that smile I love. Thane grinned at me as he headed towards the shower. By the time Thane was finished in the shower, he was out cold in his bed. I was shocked that he went to bed before me, but I knew he was exhausted from a long day. At that moment a thought occurred to me. This was my opportunity. I knew Thane was never going to let me go into the crypt again, let alone allow me behind the giant steel door. He was asleep and I was near him so he wouldn't wake up if I left. Deciding not to think much of it and investigate why the rogues entered our pack in the first place, I quickly changed my dress for a t-shirt, jeans and sneakers before I turned the television on in the living room just in case Thane woke up. He would assume that I was watching TV. I sneaked into his office on our floor and after some digging I found a flashlight and wondered why he even owned one. There were 2 members of the pack downstairs when I headed out who gave me curious glances, but with a smile and nod their way I confidently exited the house in case they got suspicious. I crossed the drive away to the part of the forest Bailey took us to and with some luck I found the hidden rail that led to the crypt. I turned on the flashlight and walked along the path to the eerie place of doom. I thanked the heavens when I spotted the creepy grey building and my Reverend Atticus still on duty. But as soon as I walked up to his confused expression a hand clapped down on my shoulder and I was positive that I was busted. Chapter 17, Heart on Fire. I gently turned around, and to my relief I saw the culprit was none other than Beau. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Beau asked in confusion. I felt my heart beating a mile a minute as I began to cold sweat. Beau. Hey, what are you doing here? I nervously asked. I think the real question is why are you here? He countered. Thane sent me. I answered quickly. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Busy with alpha stuff in his office and sent me to get something from down there. I nodded towards the crypt. Why would he? Beau began. It's not very polite to question your Luna. I said a bit rudely and felt extremely guilty about it right after. I'm sorry, Luna. He looked down when he apologized. Why you here, Beau? Did Thane send you? I hesitantly asked. No, actually. He looked nervous as he lowered his voice. Today when the rogues attacked I caught the most magnificent scent in my life. I don't understand. My eyebrows furrowed in confusion because obviously I didn't catch what he was throwing. After Thane took down the pack of rogues I lost a scent and followed it back here. I know it's her. I know my mate is down there. His revelation shocked me. So why are you just standing here? I asked, exasperated. Only Thane. Lucas and a few other pack members are allowed down there. I can't go if the Alpha isn't there, he explained anxiously. So why didn't he inform Thane? Because Thane never shows mercy to rogues. I know that he would never kill my mate, but I also know that if he finds out he might throw my mate and I out of the pack faster. He wouldn't do that. I shook my head as if I knew Thane better than anyone else. Yes, he would. The previous Alpha did it before him and Thane wouldn't think twice before following his father's footsteps. I was actually surprised to hear that he stopped the torturing. He looked frustrated. Listen. I grabbed his hand. You and your mate are going together and as long as I'm here, you both will be allowed to stay here and remain a part of our pack. Your family, Beau, and your mate will be as well. But how? I asked for the torturing to stop and he complied, so I will ensure Thane allows you to stay. How are you so sure? He looked like he was on the brink of tears. Because I am the Luna and it's my duty to protect everyone. I looked at him to make sure he was assured. I think the duty is actually the other way around, he commented as I glared at him. Can I meet her? Once I bargain my way and we will be in the clear. I grinned at his confused expression as I turned to Atticus who was approaching us. Luna, he greeted in a formal tone of which a soldier possessed. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Nobel, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Thane sent me to collect some important documents he have kept in the crypt. Luckily my voice didn't waver as I tried to sound diplomatic for the first time in my lie. Atticus gave me a weary look and I felt as if I was betraying him because honestly I was. His job was to follow his alpha and protect everyone, and there I was being an insolent child. But my motives changed. I wanted to find B housemate more than anything. Emery. I didn't receive any instructions from the alpha. He spoke irately. Achias really busy, so don't try to communicate with him. He did send Bo with me though, so don't worry. I lied through my teeth as I looked at Bo, who looked as pale as a ghost. He sure did. Bo nervously laughed. I discreetly elbowed Bo as I walked to the door of the crypt, and Atticus begrudgingly followed to let us down. Thanks, Atticus. I gave him my best smile because I know after this I would officially lose his trust. Bo led us through the narrow dark path that brought me goosensed. Finally we were in front the main doors that led to the chamber that held the rouges. I let Bo do all the talking before the heavy thick silver doors were opened up. The first thing that struck me was the scent that brought a wave of nausea to me. The distinct smell of blood, wet dog, chemicals and other unpleasant odors mixed together had my nose and eyes burning and my stomach churning. With a hesitant and heavy step I followed Bo into the deep dark part of the crypt, lining the walls of a long dimly lit hall which had no end as far as my eyes could see, were pure steel jail cells that were separated into individual cages by thick silver walls. I was guessing no more than one wolf per cage were permitted because they could conspire and escape. Angry yellow glowing eyes stared back at me. They were the ones that must be close to transformation, because some of the other prisoners just looked on at us with distaste and normal eyes with no glowing effect. Most of them looked starved and beaten, with blood and dirt all over their torn clothing. It was an image I wanted no one to see, and I knew for sure it was something I could easily forget. My heart also went out to these unknown wolves who may not have deserved being trapped here. As we walked along the hallway I kept feeling chills running down my spine as I swallowed my fear as I kept my stride with both Bo and the guard who followed us in. There were about a dozen guards inside as well, and it suddenly occurred to me that I placed myself in unnecessary danger. But I guess curiosity killed the cat. Growls and hiss were thrown our way, and filthy remarks about me, the Luna, were spitted out along with tantalizing laughs. I ignored the remarks, but I could tell Bo and all the guards were getting angry, so I looked at Bo with a signal to find his mate fast. Suddenly Bo stopped dead in his tracks and turned to the right with a fire ablaze in his irises. I've never seen such an emotion before, and it began to feel uncomfortable to stare at him. Turning my attention to the cage, I saw that it held a soul girl with raven black hair and a fute displayed on her left hand. I knew from her similar expression as Beaeus that she was his mate. Let her out, I commanded the guard. He stared at me with a horrific expression. I'm afraid I can't do that, Mum. Only direct word from the Alpha, and the Alpha, and the Alpha, and the Alpha alone will get me to open the cage, he said with finality. In your Luna. I know. But I still can't open the cage without the Alpha being here. You get him, he roared, to contact me and I will open it. Don't misunderstand me, Luna, but this is the only thing I can't help you with. He bowed in respect and turned his gaze away as he seemed to be mind-linking someone. Exasperated that I got all the way here without Thane and now I can't even help Bo, I decided to point out the obvious. That's his mate. Come on. Please just let him meet her once, I begged. The guard's attention snapped back to me with a sudden fear and anger. You're not supposed to be here. Both of you. He looked between Bo and I. Suddenly the door burst open and I could see Van's muscular silhouette approaching us from down the hall, but I cowled and read his expression because of how far we were at area. In a matter of seconds, however, he was right in front of me with the most enraged expression I've ever seen him sport. With no chance to get even a syllable in, I was suddenly hauled up and over his shoulder as he quickly walked out with me and barked orders to remove Bo and seal the doors. From my angle I could see Bo being forcefully detained by 4 guards who helped drag him out behind us and away from his mate. The girl's broken expression and the grief-stricken face broke me, and I knew I failed as a Luna. Bo was a great fighter, however, and he easily handled himself, but it was no use because he was overpowered. 12 to 1. With a sudden anger I banged my fists against Van's back, knowing he wouldn't be hurt, but trying to make him stop. Thane, stop it. I don't understand what's going on. We have to go back there. Thane. But it was no use as we were all out the door and it was sealed tight with a series of mocking clicks. Kill everyone who set their filthy eyes on her, Thane said as he speeded through the crypt, and I lost sight of Bo from my angle. We were back outside the crypt and among the forest before Thane set me on my own 2 feet. He said, kill everyone. Especially not be a housemate. I had to get him to change his orders. Thane, ensure no one gets in without my direct orders and ensure Bo remains inside my office until I return. He ignored me as he angrily shouted orders to the new set of guards outside with no sight of Atticus. He grabbed my hand and led me away from the crypt and into the dark forest, which was only lit by the glowing moon. When we were far away enough from the crypt, he turned to me with an unnerving death glare. I told you to stay out of there, to stay away from all the rogues. But no, you never listen. You didn't just put yourself at risk down there. You placed everyone in this pack at risk. He exploded and I was at a loss for words. Thane had never talked to me like that in the short time that I had known him, nor had I seen him this furious before, and I would be lying if I said I was scared. I began. No, Emery. Not another word from you tonight. Just this once I asked you to do something for me, and it was as if you didn't even care about what I said. You defied orders and put everyone at risk because of your own stupidity. Do you even understand what's going to happen now? Did you get what you were looking for? He shouted as his eyes began to turn red, and he had to shut it quickly and take deep breaths. He was about to transform because he was losing control of his anger. He released my hand and put at least 6 feet between us. I quickly stepped back towards him and outstretched my hand before he stepped back again. Don't. He forcefully mumbled. Thane, let me. I began walking towards him again, but as before he walked back. I could hurt you, he growled out. I shook my head even though his eyes were still closed. You wouldn't. You couldn't. You don't know that. Thane, stop acting like this. I grumbled in frustration. I don't want to hear it, Emery. Not tonight. Let's just get you away from here. He opened his dazzling brown eyes which reflected the brewing anger within him. So you're not gonna let me talk? You don't want to hear why I was down there? You're the alpha, right? No one else gets to talk. I questioned as he started back the trek towards the pack house. You know, it's not like that. He stopped without turning back to me. Then what's it like? It seems to me that my purpose here is nothing. You tell me nothing. I do nothing. You expect me to know about your people and protect them and comfort them, or do you expect me to fulfill my role without knowing what's going on? How can I be your equal if you don't even respect me enough to tell me what's going on? Emery. No, I'm not done. I held my hand up when he turned to me. You brought me here, so you have to live with the consequences. I didn't ask for this. You threw me into your life and I don't want it. I had a family, Thane. I had my entire life planned out and now I'm trapped in crazy town with people I don't even know. So far the only purpose I see I have is to be the mother to your children, which I don't want at such a young age. I'm just going to turn out to be your plaything. The beast plaything. I still can't even wrap my head around your existence. I let it all out with a harsh breath. Let's get you back to the house. His eyes flared again, but he walked towards me, took my hand and gently pulled me towards the direction of the pack house. So if it's it, you're not going to say anything. It's because I'm right, isn't it? I stated more than asked. Without an answer from Thane, I knew I had a long and miserable life ahead of me in this godforsaken place, at having a fairy tale life soon diminished. This story was turning more into that Witten Brothers instead of Disney, and my misfortune had it in for me. I removed my hand from the nest with ease, which was a first since he usually kept his grip on me. But I guess since I just stated the facts he was afraid of saying himself, he didn't act anymore. Not having anything more to say, I walked ahead of him since I knew my way back, and I couldn't in his presence any more than I was already bearing. As soon as we entered the front door, I went straight up the stairs as I heard Thane instructing someone to keep an eye on me and not let me out of house under any circumstances. As if I had anywhere else to go. He didn't follow me up and neither did anyone else, but I knew for sure there were guards on the second and first floors as well as patrolling the house. He did everything to ensure my protection. Well, maybe not my own, but his future child bearers. I went into his room and grabbed a pair of my pajamas and went into the guest room that I've never slept in. With a quick shower and a change of clothes, I laid on the unfamiliar bed, and it felt 1,000 times less comfortable than the nurse. It then struck me that it was after 1 in the morning and Thane barely had any sleep because I sneaked off not long after he fell asleep. I messed up real bad with him, but at least I learnt the truth. I learnt who he actually was on the inside. As sleepiness overcame me, I suddenly drifted off into darkness. They were everywhere, the yellow eyes taunting me as I was surrounded by rogue wolves in the forest. It was pitch black and not a single star was in the sky as yellowing sharp teeth snapped at me from every direction. Their eyes and wolfish grins mocked me as I cowered down in fear. Spinning right around, I cowled and see anything further than the wolves. There was no one else. Thane. Thane, where are you? Thane. Right as I was about to call out to him again, a grey wolf leapt towards my throat with a loud, chilling growl. I woke with a startling jump. I looked around and saw that the bedside alarm said it was for, which meant I only slept for 3 hours. The sky outside was still dark and the memory of the dream came flashing back into my mind as the horrible snarls and growls sent chills down my spine. I was shaken and realized that Thane was right about having nightmares after going into the secret part of the crypt. I wrapped the comforter around myself and went in search for him. Thane. I called out into the dark, empty space of his room. Thane. I called again as I strolled down the hallway and into the kitchen and then the living room, only to come up empty. He wasn't here, and by the looks of it, he didn't return from last night. Without a second thought, I went back into his room instead of the guest room and curled up into his side of the bed. I kept my eyes wide open, both waiting for Thane and afraid of seeing those horrible yellow eyes in my dreams. As the sun slowly crept above the mountains in the distance and basked the entire room with glorious sunlight. By 7 o'clock I hauled myself out of the bed and got dressed for a bleak day because it didn't seem as if Thane was going to show up anytime soon. I felt hollowed out and empty as I sat on the porch from Nan's bedroom. I saw children and parents running and playing in the garden, but nothing put a smile on my face. This was my life now. Sealed, signed, and delivered. Suddenly I felt a sharp, searing pain within my chest as if a fire had ignited within me. My heart was ablaze and the inferno lasted for about 5 seconds, which knocked the wind out of me. I was hunched over and contorted with pain before it died down painstakingly slow. It took a few minutes for the pain to go and for me to catch my breath again. What the hell was that? There was a dim pain in my chest that felt uncomfortable, but the major pain was gone. I nearly screamed from the agony of it, but I didn't. Thank goodness, because it would have just drew unnecessary attention to me. I wiped the straight airs away from my betraying eyes as I wondered if Thane was in any sort of trouble or danger. Without a second thought about it, I ran down the steps, past a few guards, and found Bailey in her room. "What's wrong?" she asked as soon as she saw my expression. I had this strange sensation just now. I began to explain. "Sensation? What do you mean?" she asked, concerned. I placed a hand above my chest. It felt as if someone lit a fire in my heart. It only lasted for a few seconds, but it was so strong that I felt as if my entire chest was on fire and the pain is still tingling in there. Bailey's jaw dropped and her expression was one of absolute horror. "Bailey." As soon as I called her back to reality, she grabbed my hand and pulled me into her room. "Emery, you may want to ask Thane about this yourself," she said hesitantly. "Just tell me," I pleaded. She looked scared to even mumble a syllable, and I was overcome with a fear I didn't know existed. "Emery, if a mate feels a fiery pain in his or her chest, then it means that their mate is engaged in some sort of activity with someone else." Bailey stood with a frightened expression as shock took over my body. "Are you okay? You sit down." With my lack of a response, Bailey led me towards a vacant chair in her and Luca's room. "Can I get you anything?" she asked after a few minutes. What sort of activities?" I croaked out. "To my agent extraordinaire, Madame Nilben. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Usually kissing or sex," she mumbled just loud enough for me to hear her. With that, I felt as if my heart had broken into a million tiny splinters across the floor as it waited for me to step on it and cut myself deeper. I felt bile rising to my throat from nausea when I thought about what Thane must be done. Who he must be done it with. Emery. Ada gave my shoulder a comforting squeeze. It isn't your fault. I got up and strolled to her door. Thanks for telling me. Enjoy the rest of your day, Bailey. I rushed out of her room and went straight to the backyard where the children were no longer playing. Silently, I moved over to the marble benches by the rose garden and took a seat as my mind was clouded with emotions and thoughts that I wanted to shut out but couldn't. I was done crying and sobbing and feeling sorry for myself. This was my fate and I didn't have any other choice. Thane did what he did and I was going to cry over it like some lovesick puppy because he clearly felt nothing for me. Heck, I doubt he even liked me as a human being. We met because he knew he would be stuck with me. I looked up at the sky to see dark grey clouds rolling in as the wind picked up and the atmosphere changed. I placed my hands on my face as a headache came on and I tried to convince myself that I didn't care about Thane and he didn't care about me, so the feeling was clearly mutual. Right. He made me believe he actually cared for me and maybe even loved me over this past few weeks. But clearly he was a good actor because he had me fooled. I actually believed him. Believed he cared. Now it felt as if a darkness was inside of me just from picturing what he did with whomever, which caused me not just heartache, but literal pain as well. I felt emotionally drained from his anger of last night and from his unfaithfulness today. I felt as if a weight was dragging me under, yet somehow I still couldn't fully hate him, and I knew then that he was right. We were made. This mystical bond that connected us was so strong that I couldn't muster the courage to hate him, but I was sickeningly heartbroken, which was an odd feeling since I felt more relieved when Jake and I broke up because of his deranged delusions. Then again, Jake was my soulmate, but at least he never cheated. I just couldn't believe that he was with someone else. Was I that fool to place so much unyielding trust into him? To believe that he was a good guy? I couldn't believe I fell for his pretty words and warm caresses. Somewhere in the distance, I heard a door banged open, and I guess someone was coming into the backyard. It was then that I noticed the rain was pouring. I was drenched from head to toe as the rain and forgiving light fell onto me. I heard pounding footsteps running toward, but I didn't remove my hands from my face and look up to see who it was. Emery, what the hell are you doing? Thane asked frantically. I didn't answer him as he wrapped his arms around me and tried to move me. No, leave me alone, was my only words as I slipped my hands off my face and glared at him. It's pouring out here. Let's go inside and we can talk. He tried to pull me up again. I pushed him away and glared at him. Don't touch me, Thane. Just leave me be. Please. He shook his head defiantly. No, if you're going to sit out here in the rain, then I'm not leaving you. I knew I was going to regret my next words, but I said them anyways. But you already did. You left me all night and went off with someone else. You felt it. He asked in more of a statement than a question, with a horrified expression. Well, isn't that typically how it works? You cheat. I feel pain. Or did Bailey leave something out in her explanation which you forgot to tell me? I all but yelled. I didn't. I don't want to hear it, and I don't fight right now. I raised my hand to silence him as I got off the bench, soaked to the bone, and shuffled my way back inside. I went straight up the steps and into the guest bedroom that I stayed in last night. Emery, will you listen to me? I didn't kiss her. He pleaded, and follow me. Oh, let me guess. She kissed you? Or was it more? I asked as I rushed into the guest room and slammed the door before he could get in. Open the door, Emery. Nope, not a chance. Emery, please. Just let me explain. He begged. No, Thane. Either heard enough from you. Last night you showed just how much you respected and cared for me and just hammered the nail straight in. Way to prove your point, but I don't want to listen anymore. I slid down to floor with my back against the door as I tried to keep my emotions in check. My teeth started to chatter from being so cold in my soaked clothing, but I had nothing in this room to change into. About 5 minutes passed before Thane started talking, his voice sounding distinctly close as if he were sitting in the same position as I was, but on the other side of the door. His voice was broken, sorrowful and almost fearful as he began. Last night, when I awoke and you weren't there, he cleared his throat. I thought you left. I thought you were in danger because you weren't with me. I almost had a heart attack when I didn't find you in the house, and that's when Atticus contacted me and told me where you were, but I was halfway to the crypt already since I started tracking your scent. That didn't give me any peace of mind, however, because I swear you were going to walk into a death trap and I was going to make it in time. I didn't care how many guards were there. The rogues would outnumber them easily just to get to you. You had my scent all over you, Emery. They knew exactly who you were last night, and that scared the crap out of me. The reason I didn't want you inside there was because I thought I was protecting you. The rogues enter our territory because they want to become an alpha of the pack, and the only way they could take me down is if they get to you. Emery, you're my weakness. My kryptonite. If they get to you, my entire life would be over. My wolf would be weaker, and I wouldn't survive it. You have no idea how much you mean to me. Since the day I met you stranded in the woods, I fell for you without knowing fully that you were my... The fact that those filthy rogues saw you last night and knew what you looked like put you in more danger than ever. That's why I got angry. That's why I had to kill them all. I let out a loud and audible gasp. Not be us, mate. Don't worry, he assured me. I couldn't risk the other rogues contacting anyone on the outside of what you look like, because if anything happens to you, I don't know what I would do to myself. My anger last night maybe was justified, but I was so angry at you for defying me. At myself for not ensuring you're safe, and at the guards who let you go down there. I don't understand why Bo just didn't tell me his mate was down there. I hate the rogues, but now that I know how much a mate means to a wolf, I wouldn't have denied him. However, I just couldn't stand you being so close to them longer than necessary, and I knew that if I didn't get you back to the house quickly, I would have probably marked you right there in the woods just to ensure I'm always in contact with you. Not until the time is right. I've never been that furious before, and I was afraid that I would uncontrollably transform into my wolf. I would never hurt you, but if you stood just close enough, my wolf could hurt you with my level of anger, and that's why I couldn't have you close to me. But when you started to speak, when you said you don't want to be here, that you don't want this, well, I knew I was to blame. In keeping you here against your will. I stole your dreams, and you can't see your family, and I can't do anything to compensate. I knew you were right, and it crushed me, Emery. But you were wrong when you said I don't respect you or that I didn't care. I respect you more than anyone else I know. Heck, I respect you as if you're my alpha, and I care for you beyond more than you can imagine. I was trying to keep any secrets from you. That wasn't my intention. I was only trying to protect you. I'm sorry that you don't want this life, Emery. It's killing me knowing that I'm keeping you here against your will, but I can't help it. You're my soulmate. And I didn't kiss Abigail. You know how she is, and she took advantage of my mood today and launched herself into me and kissed me, but I pulled her off quickly and set her straight. I knew you felt the pain, Emery. I felt it too, because it doesn't just happen to one mate. It happens to us both. We're connected. I want you to know I would never disrespect you like that. Never. I would never cheat because you're either one for me, Emery. I can't say that enough. I know I haven't done anything for you to trust me or believe me, but I want you to know that I'm telling the truth. He finished, and I believed him. It was Thane, and I somehow knew he was telling the truth. I always had blind faith in him, but he was being honest. At least I hoped he was. I got up too quickly and opened the door only for Thane to fall back, since his back was rested against the door. He looked up at me with a fearful and sorrowful expression. He whispered, still lying on the floor. I knelt beside him while shaking my head. No, it's my fault. I brought hell into your life. You're such a good guy, Thane. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I covered my face with my hands to cover my shame, but I was suddenly engulfed in his embrace, and I knew that familiar feeling. It was home. I hugged him back and curled myself into his arms. I'm so sorry, Thane. He shushed me while keeping me in his arms as he nuzzled my neck. It's not your fault, sweetheart. It's all mine. No, it's not. I pulled away slightly to look him in his eyes. You were just trying to protect me while I was putting myself in more danger. It's my fault. Stop blaming yourself. Before I could get another word in, he suddenly pulled us both to our feet. What happened? Happened. We can't change the past, but I can't promise to be better in the future. I wanted to apologize for what I said to him yesterday, but before I could say a word, He picked me up bridal style and walked us over to the ensuite bathroom in his room. He set me on the counter before grabbing a towel and drying my hair. "You don't have to do that," I meekly mumbled. "I want to. You're my responsibility and I want to take care of you." He tried his best to towel dry most of the water out of my hair. To my surprise, Thane had a blow dryer, which he plugged in for me before he left the bathroom. I tried my best to use the heat to dry my hair because I was freezing. As I was about to get some clothes, Thane walked back in with fresh, dry clothing for me. Without a word, he rested the clothing down as he went to the shower and turned it on, adjusting the water temperature for me. "I suggest you go in soon before you catch a cold," he said gently before he left me to it. His caring nature never ceased to amaze me and I appreciated it from him, but I knew I had to tell him my side of things before we can move forward. That is, if he can forgive me and I can forgive him. I quickly stripped off my soaked clothing and hopped into the steaming hot shower. No matter how long I stood under the cascading water, I still felt cold. It was this internal chill within me knowing that Thane and I had unresolved issues lurking around us. When I was finished, I dried off and saw that Thane picked out a pair of pajamas for me, and to my embarrassment, and underwear as well. My cheeks burned bright red as I exited the bathroom, just as Thane entered the bedroom. He was also freshly showered and changed in dry clothing. "Thanking me," I started, but he held his hand up, "Stop me. Why don't you make yourself comfortable while I get the fireplace going? Then we can talk." To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm, he inquired, and I nodded before heading over to the sofa in our room since it was closer to the fire. I wrapped the plush throw around me as I saw Thane put some pieces of wood into the fireplace before lighting it up. Outside was still raining cats and dogs, but now that I was inside, I didn't mind it. As the fireplace crackled to life, Thane joined me on the couch. He had something in his hand, but before I could get a good look at it, he turned me around so that my back was facing him. Without a word, he began brushing my hair. My mate wasn't angling the knots that were in my hair that was caused because it got wet. Even if I was still angry at him, he would make it impossible because of his actions. This was the first time a guy actually brushed my hair, and I'm not going to lie and I say I was squealing on the inside. His gentle touch made my eyes close down. Just as I stifled a yawn, he stopped and turned me back so that we were sitting side by side. I chewed on my lip from embarrassment. "Thank you." He gave me a half smile. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noble, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I nodded my head because I still was, even though the fire was on and a blanket was covering me. Thane opened his arms and looked into my eyes for permission, and with a simple nod from me, he moved the blanket so that it wrapped around the two of us before he wrapped me into his arms. He was really warm and I cowed and helped but revel in his body heat. My own personal heater. As silence blanketed us, I began groveling. "Thane, I didn't mean what I said last night. I want to be here. I want to do this with you, my mate. Over the past few weeks I've had more adventure than I've ever experienced in my entire life, and I wouldn't ask to change a thing. I'm sorry I always misjudge your intentions. I'm just trying to understand you and your world. But just know that I'm happy here. You transformed my dreams into something I didn't realize I wanted or needed, and I can't thank you enough." I finally expressed my feelings to him. He didn't answer me and I continued. "I do sometimes feel trapped, but that's not because of being here. It's because you don't tell me anything and I feel useless. I feel like you get super overprotective sometimes and I appreciate you for that, but I want some freedom to make decisions for myself. Just because I'm outside doesn't mean I'm going to run away or get attacked. You'll live in paranoia your entire life if you think like that. I just wish you would trust me with information and to handle things on my own. I was so angry at you for taking me out of the crypt the way you did. But when you said you were going to kill all the rogues, I cowed and bear it. I would have said anything to you so that you did change your mind and let them live. I'm sorry for making you think that I didn't want you or hated you. I never meant it. Thane, you have no idea how much you mean to me," I confessed as I looked up to see his gaze on me. His eyes were filled with what could only be described as adoration and relief. He placed a kiss on my forehead before clearing his throat. You have nothing to be sorry for, sweetheart. I made you feel that way, and I know that I have you locked here in this house, but I only want you safe. Consider having full freedom access to the Jeep anytime you want from now on. If you want space away from the pack house, then you have it. As long as I don't lose you is what's important to me. I know we both said things in anger, but you mean the world and more to me, and you have no idea how happy I am to have heard you say that I mean something to you. I don't want anyone but you, Emery. I saw emotion swirling in his eyes. Do you forgive me for running off to the crypt? Do you forgive me for everything last night and that kiss with Abigail today? He countered. I grimaced as he reminded me about that blonde hair witch. I know that she's delusional about you, and I believe you when you said she hated it, but don't bring it up again. I forgive you. I kissed his cheek and he blushed in return. You were forgiven since I saw you in the rain today. I wrapped my arms around his neck. Thank you, taking care of me. I felt his lips turn up in a smile against my forehead. Anytime, sweetheart. Just please don't sit out in the rain again. In asking, not forcing you. I smiled at what he said. I'll think about. But if I do, then promise me you'll heat me up after. If I didn't know any better, sweetheart, I'd think you were flirting with me. He pulled away enough to look at me with a playful look in his eyes. I rolled my eyes at him before I shifted so that I was laying my head against his chest. Maybe I am. Knew it. Now if only I could kiss you. He trailed off. I felt my face instantly heat up from what he said. Maybe you could. Is that an invitation? He asked coyly. Maybe it is. You're killing me, sweetheart, but as much as I would love to. I want it to be perfect. Such a tease. I mumbled with a smile as I looked up at him. Can you stay with me tonight? I asked as the sun was beginning to set. Don't I every night? He questioned with a confused look on his face. Not last night. His arms around me tightened. I'm sorry about that. I should have come back to you, but the anger was eating away at me and I didn't want to hurt you. I know you did it to protect me, but I feel safer when you're here with me. I can see some confusion written on his face. Why did something happen? No, not really. It's just that I had a nightmare about the rogues, and when I woke up you weren't there. I shook my head to get rid of all memory. Hey, look at me. He placed one of his hands on my cheek. They're not going to touch you or even lay their eyes on you. As long as I'm alive, they're not going to get to you. Ever, and I'll make sure of it. I know, Thane, but I just need you right now. I said as placed my head back on his chest and wrapped my arms around his waist. I'm happy to hear that, he said with a hint of adoration in his voice. As my eyes began to close, I remembered something. I whispered. What are we? I asked as I moved to look him in the eyes. His eyebrows furrowed in confusion. What do you mean? I mean, what do you classify our relationship as? I wondered. Well, we're soulmates, he said in finality. Yeah, I know, but I mean something a bit more tangible. I clarified. Well, unless you're proposing to me, Emery. I guess you're my girlfriend. I smirked at him. Not a proposal, but are you asking me something, Thane? He grinned down at me. Be my girlfriend, Emery Aiken. I smiled at his shy demeanor. To my agent extraordinaire, Madeleine Noban. Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Unfortunately, I would have to say. I stretched out my answer to torture him a bit. Yes, I laughed at his relieved expression. You mean way more to me than that title, sweetheart, but it'll do for now. He mumbled. I just nodded. You should get some sleep. You've basically been awake for over 24 hours. You should as well, sweetheart, because I think you have a date with your boyfriend tomorrow. Do I? You do. Is he going to set me up again? I'll beat his ass if he does. He mumbled. Good. I grinned.